Today, a military flight carrying migrants is expected to head to Guantanamo Bay. President Trump has demanded the U.S. military base in Cuba house as many as 30,000 migrants awaiting deportation. One of the many questions is this even legal? CNN's Priscilla Alvarez is part of the team behind this reporting. First of all, I think that's the question we can ask about pretty much anything that we're talking about that they're doing. Is this even legal? But with your reporting, I want you to explain what the specific plans are.
Well, and the question that DHS, Department of Homeland Security lawyers and Pentagon lawyers were reviewing over the last several days is, can they take someone who has arrived on U.S. soil, pluck them out of the United States, and take them to Guantanamo Bay for them to be repatriated to another country? We have never done that before. What we have done is interdicted them at sea, taken them to a migrant operations center that has been there for years before repatriating them. So this next phase of how they are opening up Guantanamo Bay, and the migrant center in particular, is different. It's unprecedented, and it is what lawyers have been assessing over the last several days, according to sources. Now, planning is well underway. What they are doing here is essentially building up tent facilities. This would be in the Migrant Operations Center area of Guantanamo Bay. We have used, and by we I mean the United States, has used tent facilities along the U.S. southern border before when there have been surges. It has been for a very short amount of time before they can process them out. Tent facilities are exactly what you would imagine. They are meant to hold people for very short periods of time. And the question with Guantanamo is, how long will someone be there? Now, the Homeland Security Secretary said over the weekend they will not be held there indefinitely. But a lot relies on countries taking people back. This is something that President Donald Trump talks a lot about. He just struck a deal with Venezuela to have these deportation flights. Well, that also happened during the Biden administration. And then from one day to the next, Venezuela stopped doing that. So if you were in a situation like that, what happens to those who are already there? And without access to legal service providers, which is unclear if they will have them, as well as other services, because everything comes into Guantanamo Bay, it is not just there. There's still a lot of unanswered questions here, but they are very much planning all of it. It could take about 30 days for them to get all of the facility up and running. But we are told that they're going to start sending them there now.
30,000 people,
single adults. We're not anticipating families, but again, remains to be seen.
Okay, so I want to talk about this and broaden it out to the almost trade war that President Trump had with Mexico and Canada over several issues, including and especially the issue of illegal immigration, particularly when it comes to Mexico. This is the way the press secretary at the White House described it. Canada is bending the knee just like Mexico. Then there is a very different way of looking at it, the way our colleague Stephen Collinson analyzed it. In the face of a trade war with America's neighbors, Trump blinked. There are two things to remember when assessing Donald Trump's presidencies. First, nothing is more important than the commander-in-chief looking tough. Second, nothing is really what it seems. Despite a White House victory lap, there is a more convincing case that it was really Trump who backed away from a fight that could have caused severe economic pain. Jeff Zeleny.
There absolutely is a lot of evidence to suggest that the president backed away from an economic fight. He watches the markets very carefully. I asked him yesterday if the market reaction caused that. He said, "Oh, how did the markets do?" We know he watches very carefully. So,
because as soon as they announced, forgive me, but as soon as they announced that there was even a discussion happening with
Mexico,
Claudia
the markets,
Sheinbaum, the markets
began to have a pulse, no doubt. But even inside this administration, the Treasury Secretary, Stephen Bessent, Stephen Miller, a top advisor to the president, a deputy White House chief of staff, they were all urging the president to find a deal on this, because Stephen Miller, interestingly, thought that this trade war with Mexico would hurt the broader immigration cooperation that they're seeing. So, look, the president had many reasons to back away from this, and it's unclear actually what they got out of it. I mean, the Mexican president agreed to send 10,000 National Guard troops, which isn't nothing, obviously. Justin Trudeau later in the day said that he is going to create a fentanyl czar. There's a fraction of the fentanyl that comes to the U.S. from Canada. So the bottom line, just at the White House yesterday, there was a feeling that the president, he said on Friday, no concessions, went through this, but then clearly pulled back from the brink, which many people think is not a bad thing. I mean, there were Republican senators calling up the White House. Chuck Grassley, many others from farm states, other places saying this cannot go forward. It really rattled a lot of businesses yesterday and boardrooms.
I mean, look, Fareed Zakaria was on the show yesterday saying something that I'm now going to say over and over, quoting him, of course, that so much of this is performative.
For sure.
And he wants the headlines like, and I'm going to put this up on the screen while you talk, that he's getting from the very conservative media praising him for this, despite the reality that we were just discussing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is Donald Trump's MO, and it's why he believes it's effective, because nobody knows exactly where he's going to go. He changes his mind frequently. The messaging is often unstable. His team will say one thing, and then he goes back and kind of walks it back or says a completely different thing. And so that's why he feels that he is so successful when it comes to negotiating with these countries, because they don't know where he's going to go and they don't know where he's going to land. I mean, even if you just look at the timeline, he'd said no concessions on Friday, and then on Sunday there were exceptions for oil and other things. In my conversations with some of his advisors and people close to the president in the last 24 hours, it's really been difficult for them to identify what new promises that he has been able to glean from both Canada and Mexico after that trade deal. But of course they say, wait for 30 days.